Hello art friends, welcome back to Paperlicious Design Studio. Melisa here. In today's art journal tutorial, I'm using my gel plate. I'm new to using the gel plate, so I'm not the best resource for this if you have questions. So I'm adding links to other resources in the description box below the video. I created my background design on a piece of 8.5 by 11 inch copy paper. I'm working in my 5.5 by 5.5 Arteza journal today, so I had to trim that down to fit in the journal. I had a little left over and decided to create two 3 by 5 inch art journal cards as well. I have 2 subscribers I'm swapping art cards with. Let me know if you are interested in swapping. Today's focal point features a stencil by Stencil Girl. I fell in love with this one as soon as I seen it. So creative. It's called Geek. Near the end of the video, I'll share with you the meaning behind the title and layout. When I started the page, I didn't realize how much I would relate personally to the image and title. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone who likes my videos and leaves comments. Your comments can be brief and they still help me grow my channel. Just typing a quick hi, great job, or even thanks really makes a difference. And it really encourages me to keep making videos. If you haven't already, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Just click the red subscribe button below the video and then the bell so you'll get notifications when I post a new video. I recently heard that if you're not liking and commenting on my videos, they may not show up in your feed. Clicking the bell assures that you will know when I post a new video. Alright, so let's get started with today's tutorial. I start by creating my background on my 12 by 12 gel plate. All the paints I'm using are by Artist Loft from Michaels. They're the level 3. This first color is Brilliant Purple. I'd already been playing around on my gel plate, so it's kind of dirty when I get started. I'm laying down a quarter foil design stencil and removing paint. The pattern I'm pulling off is not what I'm looking for, and I'm just going to toss it. What's left behind on the plate is what I want in my background. I continue to pick up paint here and there because I want a grungy, random kind of look. And I'm going to add another layer over this. So I just want bits and pieces of the quarter foil peeking through. And I definitely don't want the hard edges. So I'll clean those up. Next, I'll be using Till Paint by Artist Loft with the chevron and polka dot pattern stencils. I'm just pouncing it on with a sponge. These are just inexpensive sponges I found in the artist department. I can't remember if it was Michaels or Hobby Lobby, but I cut them into smaller pieces. The purple paint was completely dry before I started applying the till. The paint dries pretty quick, or at least it does in my area. The purple and till paint's dry, and now I'm ready to transfer it to my 8.5 by 11 inch copy paper. To transfer the design from the plate to my paper, it needs to be wet, so I'm adding a thin layer of white. I heard somewhere, and I think it was Carolyn Doobie, that it should be thin so that you can see some of the design under it. The white paint I am using is by Liquitex. And now I'm putting down my copy paper. Now I have to let that sit and dry some. Hopefully when I pull it back, all the color will be on the paper and the plate will be clean. How long will that take? Well, I'm not sure, because depending on the type and the amount of paint that you use and the humidity, that time will vary. I got up and went to the kitchen to fix a drink, came back, peeked under the quarter, and it was ready to go. I wanted to grunge it up a little more. I already had some dry teal paint on my other plate. This is my 8.5 by 11-inch plate. I rolled some fresh paint, then gave it a minute to get tacky, dry a little. The goal was to pick up a little here and there, to get a distressed look. I start out gently tapping the paper to the plate at first to see how wet it was and how much paint I'm going to pick up. I don't want blobs of paint. I want just enough to give it a distressed look. As more time passes, the paint dries more and I have to press a little harder to pull it up. There are no set times that this happens. It can be different for everyone depending on the climate you live in. Mine was drying pretty quick today. Now I need to trim the sheet down to 2 pages to fit in my art journal, and then trim what's left over to create 2 3 by 5-inch art cards. I need my pages to be 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. So I start by cutting the 11-inch length down to 2 5.5-inch pieces. I shifted the paper trying to figure out what section I wanted to be a part of my art journal pages. Then I trim it down to 5.5 inches the other way. What I'm left with is 2 pieces that measure 3 inches by 5.5 inches. And after I trim off another 1/2 inch from the end of each of those, I'll have 2 art cards that measure 3 inches by 5 inches. Now I'm ready to add my Music Geek image. I'm going to gently rub and pounce on black distress ink. You could use paint, but sometimes the paint seeps under the edges, while using ink will give me nice crisp lines. I used a smaller quarter foil pattern stencil and wilted violet distress ink next. This did not turn out as well as I thought it would, so next I'm going to use some gesso to knock it back a little bit. I love this Wow Heat tool. It has 2 settings. So the lower setting is more like drying your piece with a blow dryer. And then the higher setting is for embossing. I'm adding more interest to the background by stenciling on polka dots with the brilliant purple paint. Now I'm blending that in and making the background a little more cohesive with some more gesso. I took a minute to dry that, and then I noticed I don't have enough teal or that chevron pattern now. I'm adding more chevron pattern with the Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink. There's a difference between regular distress ink and the distress oxide ink. The distress ink is more translucent. The oxide ink is more opaque. That means it's going to cover whatever you put it on top of. I bet you're starting to notice a pattern now. Whenever I add another layer of interest, I use gesso to blend it into the rest of the background. I'm adding the damask pattern with the black distress ink. I want this to look really shabby and distressed, so I'm just adding a little bit here and there. I avoided applying the damask over the Music Geek stencil pattern. I want that to be really crisp and stand out. I'm just touching up this image a little bit, adding a little more black ink, getting those crisp edges. I'm going to use an ephemera style stamp image and black ink to add more texture and interest to the background. The flash of white paper is what the entire image looks like. I'm only inking up part of the image, and I'm only pressing on a small area of the stamp so that I get a partial stamp image. And I'm just going to randomly do that throughout the background. Then I'm going to use a makeup applicator and apply the black ink around the edges to grunge it up a little. All right, so now it's time to add the journaling to this layout. I started out looking online for a music quote, but then I started thinking about how much I love music and some of the reasons I listen to it so much. Music can be very powerful. A good lyric can pick you up when you're down or bring you to tears. I enjoy a wide range of music from the 60s to today's hits. I like Christian rock, pop, occasionally some country, and even some rap. I can remember lyrics to songs from the 60s, but I can't even remember what I had for dinner a couple of days ago. I relate to it, and for me, it's very powerful. And at times, when I'm worrying about something, mulling it over in my head repeatedly, it's just what I need. You know, when you just can't stop thinking about something, worrying about it really doesn't change anything, and sometimes it feels like mental and emotional torture the way I keep processing it. Well, in these times, music can be my escape. And then I knew exactly what I needed to journal for this one. Music calmed the chaos in her head. So I typed up this title using a font from dafont.com. It's called Buy More. And I used that for the word music and for chaos. And then the other words I created using a font called Impact that just came with my computer. I printed that out and then used my Fiskars micro tip scissors to cut the words out. The tips of these scissors are very precise. These scissors allow you to get into those little bitty places because they actually cut all the way to the tip. They're very precise. All right, well that pretty much wraps up today's project. I hope you were inspired. If you like this video, then I hope you'll give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. All I have left to do now is to glue these pages into my journal. If you want to stick around for a few more minutes, I'll show you how I finished up the 3 by 5 inch art cards. I'm using foam tape to pop up the wings and add more dimension. I'm going to end up putting 2 little black pearls in the center of each butterfly as well. I'm using a black fine tip Posca pen to fill in the letters some and make them stand out more. That's it for today, art friends. See you next time.